My name is Elena Drayton, and I'm about to serve the coldest dish revenge has ever known. I'm standing in the opulent dining hall of Lakeside Haven Resort, watching my mother-in-law Vivian wave her jeweled hand imperiously in my direction. The Montana sunset streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting golden light across her perfectly coiffed silver hair as she gestures toward the salad I've just placed on our private dining table. "Elena, dear," she purrs with that familiar tone of polite dismissal, "could you fetch more dressing? And perhaps check if the kitchen needs help with cleanup? The staff seems overwhelmed tonight." The other family members barely glance up from their conversations about yacht clubs and European vacations. To them, I'm furniture, useful, reliable, and utterly invisible. Owen, my husband of 12 years, doesn't even flinch as his mother reduces me to hired help in front of 20 relatives. What none of them know is that I'm not here as a guest this year, I'm here as the owner. For over a decade, I've been the ghost at their family gatherings, the practical wife who brings store-bought desserts instead of artisanal gifts, the quiet one who clears plates while they lounge with cocktails, the woman they introduce as Owen's wife who works in infrastructure. I think I actually design large-scale urban development projects, transit systems, waterway management, green space integration. For 12 years, I've been a lead consultant for state-level planning initiatives, but to the Draytons, I'm just the woman who married into their legacy and somehow never quite measured up to their standards of inherited elegance. Tonight, that changes. The erosion began slowly, as it always does with families like this. It wasn't dramatic outbursts or cruel declarations, it was death by 1,000 paper cuts. The way conversations stopped when I entered rooms, how my professional achievements were dismissed with polite nods before someone changed the subject to more interesting topics like their children's private school admissions or their latest property acquisitions. At every family retreat, held annually at this very resort, I learned my place through subtle orchestration. Vivian would book the Lakeview villas first, secure early check-ins without asking, and make sure everyone knew she was on a first-name basis with the former owner. I'd arrive with homemade contributions only to watch them get pushed aside for catered alternatives that better matched the aesthetic. The breaking point came last summer. We were gathered on the same terrace where I now stand, and Owen's uncle made a joke about how I must be saving a fortune driving the same car for nearly a decade. The entire table erupted in laughter, including my husband. Everyone except me. That night, I sat alone on our cabin balcony, watching lights flicker across the dark water. For the first time in years, I stopped asking what I'd done wrong and started asking what I was waiting for. The answer came to me like dawn breaking over the lake. I was waiting for permission to take up space in a family that would never grant it, so I decided to stop asking. The next morning, I made a call to Marcus Chin, a former colleague turned private hospitality acquisitions specialist. We'd worked together on a transit-centered hotel district proposal for Seattle before he pivoted into boutique property investments. "Elena Drayton," he said, recognizing my voice immediately. "This is unexpected. I want to buy a resort," I told her without preamble. There was a pause, then a knowing laugh. "Of course you do. You always did aim high and strike quietly." Within 6 months, we'd identified Lakeside Haven as the perfect target. The longtime owners were aging out, land taxes were rising, and management had grown complacent. It was a legacy brand trapped in outdated operations, exactly what I needed. I liquidated carefully investment portfolios I'd built in silence while everyone else bragged about flashy purchases. Consulting retainers accumulated over years of meticulous financial planning. The equity stake in a zoning technology startup that I'd never mentioned to Owen. Everything I'd earned while being dismissed as practical Camille suddenly had a purpose. We formed Arcadia Retreats Holdings, anonymous, efficient, and completely invisible to the Drayton family radar. Marcus handled negotiations while I remained a silent partner, carefully keeping my name off any public documentation. The deal closed on a Tuesday morning in February, the first time I walked the property as majority owner. I did it alone in the pre-dawn darkness. I stood in this exact dining hall where Vivian had once scolded me for misplacing sugar packets, running my hand along the mahogany railing she gripped during every cocktail hour. I wasn't angry, I was calm. Ownership, I discovered, isn't loud or dramatic, it's simply final. From that moment, everything changed with surgical precision. We upgraded infrastructure, raised staff wages, and tightened operational efficiency. Most importantly, we removed the Drayton family from the legacy guest discount list, citing policy restructuring. No one questioned it. They assumed some faceless corporate entity had taken over, lamenting the loss of family-owned charm. I watched them complain in group chats. Owen would read messages aloud, It's just not the same anymore, is it? No, it wasn't. It was mine. By the time this year's reunion arrived, I had every detail orchestrated. Vivian took credit for booking their usual block of rooms, Lakeview North Cabins, 3 suites, early check-in privileges. What she didn't know was that those rooms had been reassigned twice, and I'd personally signed off on their reinstatement at full price with 0 discounts. We arrived on Thursday to the same choreographed performance, monogrammed luggage, air kisses, casual condescension wrapped in family tradition. No one noticed I didn't check in at the front desk. I walked past it while reviewing staff schedules on my tablet. The complaints started immediately. Lauren, Owen's sister, declared the check-in staff had been strangely cold. Cousin Haley lamented slow valet service. Vivian proclaimed the breakfast eggs less rich than previous years. It used to have character. Lauren sighed dramatically. Now it's just policy after policy. Ben's uncle nodded knowingly. I heard some tech fund bought it. They never understand family-owned elegance. Owen, ever agreeable, chimed in, no soul anymore, just bureaucracy. I said nothing, sitting quietly at the table's end, sipping coffee while they unknowingly criticized me to my face. There's a particular satisfaction in becoming the ghost in someone else's narrative, in knowing the system they mock is you. Friday's welcome dinner arrived with Vivian's chosen theme, resort chic. I wore the same navy sheath dress from my graduate presentation over a decade ago. It fit better now. Halfway through the grilled salmon course, Marcus, the cousin who once laughed at my reusable napkins, made another disparaging comment about the pool renovations. Who updates a pool deck mid-season? Amateurs. The conversation snowballed into a symphony of critique and advice. I listened with growing amusement as they dissected every operational change I'd personally approved. Then Vivian raised her champagne glass for a toast. I just hope, she said with saccharine sweetness, that whoever bought this place understands that families like ours built its reputation. We're not just guests, we're the reason this resort is what it is. My hand tightened around my fork, not from anger, but anticipation. They were about to discover exactly who built what. After dessert, I excused myself for air. Owen nodded absently, not looking up from his wine. I stepped onto the moonlit terrace and pulled out my phone. Ethan, I said when our general manager answered, it's time. You want me to do it now? Before they pour another glass, I want their heads clear. I hung up and watched through the glass doors as Ethan approached the front of the dining room. His spoon clinked against crystal, echoing through the hall. Conversations faltered. Good evening, he began. Thank you all for joining us at Lakeside Haven's annual summer celebration. This year marks a new chapter for our property. As part of our transition under new majority ownership, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the person behind this transformation. I walked back inside just as he delivered the final line. Please welcome our new owner, Miss Elena Drayton. Silence, pure, crystalline silence. Lauren froze mid-sip, wine spilling onto her white silk blouse. Marcus stared like he'd missed a crucial cue. Haley mouthed something soundlessly. Vivian remained frozen, champagne glass still raised mid-toast, as if time had stopped specifically for her humiliation. Owen looked like he'd been unplugged from reality. I walked slowly to the front, my heels marking time against polished wood. When I reached Vivian's chair, the head of the table she'd claimed for decades, I stopped. Ethan handed me the microphone. I took it with one hand, the other resting lightly on the back of her seat. I want to thank you all, I began calmly, for your decades of loyalty to Lakeside Haven. This resort has long been a place of tradition, family, and summer memories, and now, it's also a place of change. I paused, letting that land. You're all still welcome here, of course, just like everyone else. That was the moment everything tilted. There will be no more legacy discounts, no backdoor bookings, no preferential upgrades. Effective immediately, our guest policies apply equally across the board. I looked directly at Owen last. His jaw was tight, hands folded, a man realizing he'd never asked the most important questions. Any comments or suggestions about management can be sent directly to me. I handed back the microphone, turned without waiting for response, and walked out. Behind me, 20 people sat frozen, holding silverware like weapons they'd forgotten how to use. I made it to the hallway before I exhaled, not relief or victory, but release. The fallout began before sunrise. Lauren cornered me after breakfast, clutching her purse like armor. I think there's been a misunderstanding about our cabin arrangement. The family lease expired 2 years ago, I replied smoothly. But Haley said, would you like to continue that sentence under oath? I handed her my legal team's card. You've made over 40,000 subletting that cabin unreported. You might want a CPA. Ben's uncle, who'd once called my thrift store shoes adorably ironic, Emailed requesting to extend his sweetheart lease. I replied with formal notice to vacate and reassign the property to a nonprofit serving disabled veterans. And then there was Vivian. She appeared in pearls and controlled fury, cashmere sweater draped over her shoulders like dignity itself. She wanted to discuss appearances and what people would think. I listened for 5 full minutes before opening my desk drawer and handing her an envelope. Inside, photographs, emails, and notarized statements from 3 former employees she'd mistreated over the years. I've already settled with them, I said quietly, but if you ever try to reframe yourself as the victim, this goes public. Are you threatening me? She whispered. No, I replied. I'm documenting truth. When she left, her posture was different, less statue, more collapse. 3 days later, I sat alone on the dock at sunrise, watching mist rise off perfectly still water. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't trying to prove anything. For over a decade, I'd shrunk myself to fit into a family that never looked closely enough to see me. Now I wasn't asking to be seen, I had stepped into full view, and not one of them knew what to do with it. Owen moved out quietly the following month. No fights, just folded clothes and empty spaces. He left a note, I didn't see you, and I should have. I kept the note, not for sentiment, but for clarity. Sometimes closure doesn't come with apologies, it comes with power, quiet, earned, irrevocable power. The kind that doesn't need a seat at their table. Because now I own the damn restaurant. Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe Revenge Radar and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you in next video.